Welcome to Talking New York Real Estate with Vince Rocco. Our show is all about the exciting world of real estate and in particular, how it relates to the luxury New York marketplace. But if you are not planning a real estate transaction in New York, we still have plenty of information you can use no matter where you are. Now, here's our show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Vince Rocco in New York, so let's get right to what everyone is talking about. Today on the show, in the real estate industry, it has a reputation problem. Consumers are more informed than ever, but too many agents are still relying on outdated tactics, offering little more than door access or search filters. This isn't just inefficient, it's eroding trust in our profession. In a marketplace where clients are more informed, competition is tighter, and expectations are higher than ever, the role of the real estate agent has never been more under scrutiny. The days of coasting on a license, a business card, and a few listings are gone. Today's buyers and sellers demand expertise, innovation, and true value, and the agents who don't rise to the occasion risk being left behind. This conversion isn't just about survival, it's about redefining what excellence in real estate should look like. And on set with me today are Jared Anton, Managing Director here at Brown Harris Stevens, and Teresa Stevenson, President of Platinum Properties. And they join me now to discuss. But first, let me welcome my listeners and viewers from across the United States and all around the globe. This is Talking New York Real Estate, so let's go behind the headlines and inside real estate, the state of our industry.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So as I said at the top of the show, our industry, the real estate industry, at least here in New York City, has a reputation problem or is building a reputation problem. What do I mean by that? Well, we're going to talk about that today. We can't continue to be complacent. We can't continue to think the way we've always thought about doing our jobs. The market has changed. The seller and the buyer expectations have changed. They expect more from us. We are professionals. And part of the problem in this industry, as I talk about all the time, is the lack of professionalism and expertise and trust out of the agent population here in New York City. So we have to kind of get our arms around that, understand what it all means from the perspective of how much better we can become as professionals and doing our job better, finding more sellers and buyers, and getting more business. So, Jared, let me start with you. We talk about raising the bar, okay, in our industry, in the agent pool. What does that actually mean when we say an agent has to, or we as an industry have to raise that bar to get better?
Thanks, Vince. Happy to be back here. And there's not one answer fit all for this question, right? I think an easy way to describe it would be that an agent needs to shift their thinking from being a salesperson to being more as an advisor. For instance, we don't actually sell a piece of property. The fact that property is bought or sold is really the result of us doing our job well. So what is our job? Our job is to advise. Our job is to help insert clarity in a sea of noise and help really change from being a gatekeeper to information or a gatekeeper into getting into properties and really being that advisor that's coming alongside for the duration of someone's home buying or home selling journey to help them navigate it. And that's the biggest shift. And this perception that agents have is our fault alone. We've enabled it. We've removed a ton of barriers to entry. And anytime that you have someone able to get into a profession that offers the ability to make a lot of money, with very little requirements, it's a 75-hour course and a test. That can create problems. And we'll talk more about how some of the brokerages in our industry are perpetuating that. But really, this industry as a whole and the agents that are at the forefront of the business doing this as a profession, not as a job, but as a profession, as a career, as a business, need to take it upon themselves to do better, to raise that bar and to level up.
I absolutely agree with that. And I think, again, using the word complacent, we just kind of get used to, especially the longer you're in the business. And I'm finding that also when I'm talking to students at the school that I teach in continuing ed, so they're experienced agent, they just get complacent in doing what they've always felt comfortable doing. Teresa, let me ask you, though, from a consumer expectation perspective, okay? Are their expectations actually outpacing our level of expertise on the agent side, as Jared just said, we've got to kind of kick that up a bit. What are their or consumer expectations, the buyers out there and the sellers that are going to hire us at some point?
Sure. So I think absolutely. I think a lot of this is coming from what's available on the internet with technology. As Jared said, being a gatekeeper is no longer an option. Like the gates are open, right? You have whether the information that consumers are finding is accurate or not is a whole different conversation. But data is available. It's online. They can click a button and talk to an agent. They can, they can see everything that is available online. And so I think we have to really reframe what our offering is. And I think it's forcing us to not be complacent. I mean, I think if you're complacent, yes, we need more qualifications and all of that. I totally agree that people need more education, shouldn't be allowed. There should be a higher barrier to entry. But the truth is, the market, the consumer is not going to support it if you're not keeping up. If you show up and you can't have an intelligent conversation about what's happening in the market, why that price that they've seen is right or wrong, the context around it, the strategy that's important. If you can't have those conversations, if you're not super responsive, right, just talking about leveling it up, you're just so many more things are required of you now because of the availability of information to the consumer.
Yeah, I mean, well said. When I first started in this business 23 years ago, there weren't any websites or applications, StreetEasy, for example, that a consumer, a buyer could go to. If they wanted information or needed information about anything to do with the real estate industry, especially if they were buying something, they called us. Right. They came to us. We were that credible source. As you said, today, at the click of a button, and they could look at comps in any building. They could look at what's available for sale in any building. Sellers do the same thing with social media. And I say this all the time, don't kid yourself. Your clients, your potential clients are looking at your social media feeds. Be professional, be credible, especially if you're talking about real estate, because this is what they are looking for. They're kind of interviewing you when they do that. I've walked in years ago when social media first started. I've told the story many times on the air, and somebody would say to me, it looks like, you and your dog have a great relationship. And the first time I heard that, I thought, how do you know my dog? How do you know me and my dog? And then she said to me, oh, I follow you on Facebook. And I thought, there you go. That's my jet. She was quite the star. But people still do that. They still do that. Jared, why do you think the industry as a whole has become so forgiving on mediocrity? Why do we just kind of sit there and say complacency, mediocrity? Why do we just accept that instead of focusing on what we should do and can do better?
Yeah, it's an important question. And to build on what Teresa said, and this touches on a little bit what we talked about the last time I was on your show with Molly, is that while there's certainly some incredibly demanding clients, and they deserve to be demanding,
absolutely,
as long as they're nice about it. There's some, curse word clients that are demanding and mean about it. That's a different story.
Correct.
But if the client is demanding, that's okay, and that's good, and that's welcome. As an agent, I want a client that is educated, informed, and will challenge me because that keeps me on my toes and that makes it more fun. The problem is, though, many clients are just actually not conditioned to actually know what a good agent feels like. And this is a problem because they then accept the mediocrity. True. And, in a time like we had in 2021 and early 2022 before rates rose, when, there was so much transaction volume and there was so much extrinsic motivation in the market, it was easy for not good agents to get volume because the volume just flowed over the trenches, right? And now, though, where deals are a little bit harder to come by, agents should differentiate themselves. But the problem is consumers are still too forgiving because I don't think enough of them have experienced what a good advisor can do and how different that experience is. I talked last time about when you're working with the new buyer, don't start the conversation with what are you looking for? Start high level with what is their motivation, what's their intent, and why did they reach out today? But when you ask a question to a client like that, sometimes they're totally put off by it because they just want to go and see the property. So again, they're preconditioned in part by Screezy, in part by Zillow, or this whole way of it wanting that instant gratification. They just want to go and see the property, and they're actually doing themselves a disservice because they're not aligning with then a commensurate professional. So that's part of it, is that I don't think the consumer is necessarily set up for success to know what an extremely good quality agent and advisor will do for them and how that feels initially.
Again, very well said. And, we had a show last week where we talked about telling a story in real estate. It's more than just putting up videos or putting up photographs or writing the best content ever. You have to tell a story, and the consumer, the buyer who might be looking at that, has to kind of follow that story from point A to point Z, whatever it is, because they want to know more detail, I believe, these days than not. So when you're telling a story, when you're writing content, when you're shooting a video or even still photographs, it's got to be more meaningful than it ever used to be. And again, I'm in this business for 23 years, and I've seen all sides of it. And what I find the most successful people are doing today, not only for themselves, but again, for that consumer out there, is to tell a story and present your properties in the right way. I'm also going to tell a little bit of a personal story, which I don't generally do. But this week, I had a showing on, one of my listings that's been on for a long time. The market is just what it is. And I thought the showing went really well. And at the end of the day, 2 hours later, I got an offer on that property, okay? And again, we've been on the market for about 4 months. And here's the story. The story is, when the agent called me, he said, let me tell you something. That showing you did this afternoon, that morning, it was 8:30 in the morning, was absolutely what sent them over. They loved you. You presented not only the apartment well, you presented the building well. You knew every fact about that building. You answered every question. They were blown away, and their response was, we want to work with him, meaning we would like to do a deal. We love the apartment, on and on. That's part of personality, which I was also going to touch on. When you're doing these things, you've got to show who you are. I think I try and do that here because people relate to people. People want to know, I'm comfortable with you. I trust you. I have confidence and credibility in you because, hey, I'm spending lots and lots of money in this town to buy something. And we spend millions of dollars, and apartments are not, the size of homes in the burbs. They're tiny little apartments, right? So you got to do something well.
But hold on, let's hang on that for a second, though, Vince. Let's underscore something.
And I only say that because I think it proves the point where you got to put a lot more of yourself into it.
But it's even more important because, and I think you underserved yourself in your story, you were on the sell side, you were on the listing side there, and you enticed the buyer to be over the edge and want to purchase it because you as a seller's agent were incredibly warm, inviting, and knowledgeable. So if you're representing sellers and you think you can just show up, flip the lights on, and be passé, no. What you highlighted is that buyer could easily been off-putted by you. You could have been, not engaged, just, go take a walk around, and maybe that's why the property would have continued to sell on the market and they would have been easy to pass. But because you engaged them, because you were someone that they wanted to work with, that created that experience. And it's so important then for agents on the sell side to create that experience when buyers are coming in and be someone warm and personable that the buyers themselves would want to work with.
Well, I think it's also, today, people are looking for a lifestyle, right? It's not just an apartment. You talk about storytelling. There's right. the Maya Angelou quote that we all quote all the time because it's so good. People will forget, I'm going to butcher it, but people will forget basically anything you say and do, right?
100%.
But they don't forget the way you make them feel. And I have no doubt that they not only liked you, but because they felt good in there. You kind of, you talked about the building, you talked about the apartment in a way that tells a story.
Yeah.
What is their life going to look like here? How are they going to feel in this apartment? Right?
I asked them, I think at one point, how do you intend to live here? And I do that. And I don't really hear that when I'm out showing buyers in other listings. How are you going to live here? How can you make this work for you? And here's the PS to that story, again, and then I'll move on. But I was the first apartment they saw from out of town, okay? Day one, 8:30 in the morning was my apartment, my penthouse. They went on to see 5 or 6 others that day. And when the agent called me and I said, wow, isn't that something? The first apartment they saw. And he said, what they said was, we have to have it. We have to have it. I don't remember how many, there's 6, 7, 8 apartments, if you can show 6, 7, 8 apartments in one day, but they start at 8:30 in the morning, so I guess they could. Skill. Okay, you need to have skill. You need to bring your personality into this. And I say all the time, that's non-negotiable. People have to feel comfortable and credible in what you have to say. Telling a story, giving the facts, how are you going to live in the apartment? What about this place makes you feel good? I love when I ask people that. Sometimes they get all jammed up. They don't know how to answer you because no one's ever asked that question before. I'm going to ask it, okay? And I do it all the time, and it works. What skills do you think should be non-negotiable today in 2025 in this current marketplace for any agent that wants to be successful? What kind of skill is an absolute and a non-negotiable?
I think it's doing all of the boring things, right? I think it's, having the right follow-up and follow-through. It's being able to be responsive, accountable, and resourceful. You need to be self-driven and self-motivated to some extent, I believe, in this business. And you need to have a genuine desire to want to help people. There has to be some level of altruism that comes through with you in this business. If you're in this business just because you think you can make a lot of money or make a quick buck,
oh no,
you're in this business for the wrong reason. You have to be here because you love helping people. And that's what got me into the business, 17 years ago. That's what keeps me in the business, is helping people be able to achieve, one of their biggest lifelong dreams, or be able to properly approach one of their biggest financial decisions. So you have to come to it from that human element. Absent that, I don't believe it works, even if you're incredibly smart.
I think you also need to be leveraging the tools available to make time for that. Ultimately, we talk about technology and all of that, and will it take our jobs? I think the human parts of what we do won't be replaced for a long time, if at all. But what is making a big difference right now is having the systems and procedures in place that give you the time to personalize for each client, to make each client feel special. The advent of AI, it's incredible what it's doing right now in ways that can really help you streamline your operations, that can help you with that consistent follow-up, right? Talk about what makes people feel special, right? Attentive, personalized follow-up. So I think systems, and then I think just digital marketing and social media right now. I think and you don't have to be good at this, right? But somebody around you has to be, whether you're with a brokerage that's giving you these tools and teaching you how to use them, or you have somebody, as you grow, you have somebody on your team who's in charge of these things to allow you to do the more high-touch personal service. I think it's really important right now, and just such a great way to leverage your time.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be involved in all of it. And part of the problem with social media or anything digital, to a large, group of agents out there, is like, I don't have time for that. Oh, it takes too much time. Oh, I'm too busy, or I don't know how to do that. Get with the program and learn. We're coming right back after a quick break. Talking New York Real Estate is just getting underway on this Tuesday morning here on the More Network. We will be right back.
The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Let's talk about, it's such a hot button with me, relationship agents versus transactional agents. And I think it kind of fits in with what you guys have been saying so far this morning. When you're a transactional agent, I don't think you have time to do, as you were suggesting before, getting involved in everything, being focused, being credible, because all you're thinking about is, sadly, that commission check at the end of the deal, which is wonderful. We all want that. That's how we get paid. But if you're only focusing on that or finishing a transaction, you're missing out on a whole bunch of, relationship stuff that I believe is important to continue to grow the business. Teresa, you manage a lot of agents, as does Jared. How do you coach agents when you kind of see that they're on the wrong side of where they should be, relationship versus transactional? And is it difficult?
I think it can be difficult just to shift somebody's paradigm. Ultimately, I think if you are a transactional agent, you just don't have longevity in this business. I mean, talk about burnout, right? Like it takes a lot of effort and energy to generate each and every client that comes in. So if you are not nurturing your clients, you're just going to have to put way too much time and effort and energy into everything. I mean, we look at statistics. These are just old rule of thumb stats, but the probability of closing a repeat referral client is, I think, around 80% ballpark. A cold lead around 6%. The time, effort, and energy that goes into sourcing leads. So we try to talk to them, about kind of some of those stats. And I know for me, sometimes because it actually feels really nice to nurture, right? And it can feel like, phone calls, coffees, lunches, whatever it may be. That's really quite enjoyable. And I'm somebody who's I really I want to work hard. That doesn't feel like work to me. So in some ways, it's a little bit of a relief to say, no, all of that's work. Hopefully that's good news. Right. I think some of us, it's not even that we don't care about the client. It just doesn't necessarily feel like we're being productive. Right? If I'm submitting an offer, if I'm showing a client, if I'm getting back to somebody with properties, I feel like I'm working. But hopefully the good news is, guess what? Maintaining relationships with your client is work. It is the work, right?
It is the work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where do agents fall down in that regard? Or do they even understand that when you do well by a client, you're going to get a referral? Oh, there's the word, referral. That's how we work. That's how we continue to work, right? If you don't like me, you're probably going to not want to tell your loved ones or your friends or your family, hey, I wouldn't work for him. Yeah, we just did a deal, but he was not really very good. What do we do?
I mean, Teresa's spot on. It's all about the framework or the lens by which an agent looks at their business. To me, you can lose a deal as long as you don't lose a relationship. An agent would come to me and say, hey, Jared, deal just fell through. And the first question I ask, well, do you still have the client? Like, do you still have the relationship? Because that's all that matters. We're not selling property. The fact that property gets sold is a result of us doing a good job. So at the end of the day, as I like to say, real estate's a contact sport. It's a relationship business. And you have to truly build the Rolodex, stay in touch with clients. You're spot on with leveraging AI and personalization at scale and delivering relevant content. But at the end of the day, this is not a sprint. This business is like an ultra marathon because you're not getting in and getting out. So you will not make a lot of money very quickly in this business if you go about it the relationship way. And that's kind of the point. The point is that you're building a longer, more sustainable business for yourself and building, a whole holistic sort of framework around having repeatable business. And that's the key. And part of this, again, is where these aggregators have created the problem because they are putting out coaching that is in the aggregator's best interest to just get the person to the showing, to just get the deal. But it actually is fundamentally against what's in the best interest of this industry, what's in the best interest of the agent over their holistic lifetime in the business, and quite frankly, against the best interest of the brokerages themselves. So you have this competing commitment between trying to satisfy an algorithm from an aggregator and doing what is truly right for you to build the business. And this is why when you're working with internet-generated leads, they're oftentimes incredibly necessary and they can be an incredible building block for your business. But you have to make sure that your mindset stays balanced in knowing that every time you invest, every minute you invest with a lead or with a relationship is potential value you can get back later. So even if they tell you they don't want to buy today, still follow up with them because no one else will. And if you do, that's at least one way that you'll get exposure.
You become their trusted advisor.
Exactly.
And
That's
as
it.
I say all the time, just like your financial advisor where you keep your extra money or whatever, your portfolio, you have to trust that person.
And
They're controlling a lot of your money.
If you went
right?
to a financial advisor and he just said, where do you want to put your money? Right? The way we might say, okay, sure, I'll take you to see that property.
Right.
You'd be like, I'm going to find somebody new, right? A financial advisor sits you down, talks to you about your life, talks to you about your priorities.
Correct.
Any agent who isn't doing that for their clients is really setting both them and their clients up for failure. I think regardless of where the lead is coming from, right? Whether it's coming from the internet or from your sphere, it's so important to take that consultative approach.
Correct. And if I give advice to a new agent, right? Obviously, closing deals is important. It's how you're going to, support yourself. But when you're just starting out, I would argue that what is more important for you and a better measurement is not how many deals you've actually done. It's how many deals you didn't do, but have created a relationship that can come back tomorrow in 6 months in a year, because that shows me that you have longevity in the business, that you have the right lens. So yes, the amount of deals that you do in this business are important at some point in your career.
Correct.
But at the beginning, it's really more important about the relationships and the seeds that you're nurturing and how that's going to develop.
Okay. Based on what you two just said, and I 100% agree, should the licensing process that agents go through brand new become a little more strict, a little more, focused on just what you guys are saying? Because, like you go to school, you read books, you get book smart, you go out on the street. I want to be CEO of a company. Okay, yeah, well, doesn't everybody. Learn, feet on the street, walk through the process. Real estate, as you guys are indicating, and it's true, you just you get your license and you're thrown into the mix. What do you know? How do you do that? So should we teach agents initially? I mean, I see it in continuing ed, and I have to say, and this is the truth, I look at students, and I'll see them this afternoon, and I think to myself, how on earth are they in this business? Really? I mean, really? What, do we need to get better at licensing? Meaning, do we need to pick better people? I mean, I also see some people going into the new sales class, which is right next door to my classroom. And I think to myself, oh boy.
Yeah.
I think.
What are we doing?
Yeah. So I would love to see more continuing education that is New York City specific, for starters. I mean, my general answer to you is
I
yes.
agree with that.
Yes, it would be great to have higher standards. And I think we should do that. I think part of the way the license is designed, right, where we have to practice under another broker, is purposeful. And some of that is meant to, we are supervising brokers, right? How do we supervise our agents? How do we usher them into this industry? And maybe there should be more oversight on that process. I don't know. I think if you don't offer particularly good training, then I don't think, you should be hiring solo agents who are brand new, right? I think they should be assigned to teams, right? There needs to be some kind of development there.
Correct.
But I do kind of love that you don't have to go to law school to be a real estate agent, or that you don't. One of the things that's exciting for me about doing
I wonder
real
sometimes
estate,
if some of these attorneys have gone to law school. But that's another whole
different,
story.
yeah,
That's
that's a whole other
story.
podcast.
Yeah,
but,
really.
I think one of the coolest things, you've got so many people from so many different backgrounds. I feel like it's one of the few industries where I feel like the American dream is still really alive. So I do think we should have more, we should have a long conversation about how we can increase our standards within the industry. And certainly certification and training and education should be part of that. Looking at what kind of responsibilities brokerages have to educate and supervise their agents. But I would hate to take away, I would hate to see the barriers go so high that suddenly, you have to train for a new career. I love it when you have somebody who's come from another country, right?
Yeah.
They were a doctor or a lawyer in their former country, and for some reason they can't do that here, and they're waiting tables, and they're like, well, maybe I should give real estate a try, right? And you watch them come here and build an incredible team and take care of their families, and where maybe going to a 3-year program would be prohibitive.
I've said for years, this is not for everybody, not because it requires lots of brain cells or rocket science. I mean, it doesn't, okay? But it's not for everybody, okay? And I also spent many years in selling new developments, okay? And I would take my buyers to other new developments, and I would think to myself, oh, God, how on earth is this person selling in this building? Whatever. But you have to be the right person. Yeah. We fall short sometimes in understanding what our clients want from us. And when I managed agents for 4 or 5 years, back when I had my own company 10 years ago, I was focused on them, meaning when they came to me with an issue or a problem or a stalemate or whatever, I appealed to them from the relationship perspective. What are you doing to get your customer, your seller or your buyer, to understand whatever? versus it's got to be done. It's got to be done. It's got to be done. That does not work. Transactional, that does not work. So if you focus on the right areas of development for that agent, it's not easy because everybody is different. And we all know that agents are very different, right? Just like anybody in any profession. You got to focus on who these people are and find that spot where you're going to, really relate to them, get them to understand this is the only way you are going to get a successful, close to a transaction. I find that easy. I don't know that most people do, and that's where my frustration comes in sometimes because I can see that it's not. Let's talk a little bit about AI, as you guys mentioned before, tech platforms and digital everything these days. Again, we talked last week about storytelling, right? Jared, what is your philosophy on everything digital, everything AI? I mean, I know you appreciate it, but explain to our audience and our listeners what or how an agent can really develop better skills by utilizing, as Teresa said before, everything that's available to them.
Yeah.
And not shy away from it.
And I know Teresa will have a lot to add to this topic because she had recently deployed a bunch of AI tools within her brokerage as well. But you have to use it responsibly, right? I refer to dumb AI and smart AI, and it's really the user. Are they using it smartly or not? Because, you put garbage in, you get garbage out. For instance, I use it heavily when I'm writing my weekly market update, but I don't type in, write me a weekly market update. Right. No, I freeform. Literally, I will just spew in talking form
That's what I
for
do
15 or 20 minutes into it with what I'm sensing, what I'm seeing, pulling together facts. And then it helps me be able to just present my thoughts in a rational, coherent way.
Absolutely.
And I always struggled with staring at a white screen or a blank presentation and saying, okay, how do I get the thoughts that are swirling around in my head onto that paper? So I use it to inform, and I use it basically as like a ghostwriter. No differently than if I was sitting down, with you, Vince, and dictating my thoughts, and then you wrote it for me. So if you use it in that way, I believe it helps complement your strengths and, counteract some of your weaknesses. So that's one of the important things, is it can help you be able to do your job better. As an agent, and this will lead into Teresa right now, it becomes a delegate and elevate. So how do you use AI to take off some of the less priority or less value add or less revenue creative tasks from you so that you can spend more time being present for your clients? And if you can use AI to do that, then that's going to give you more time to be a better agent or to handle more clients. Because again, we have this flight to quality. We have this piece where agents are chasing fewer transactions and the clients are going to rather work with the better people. So top agents need to be able to handle more business without any more time.
Thoughts?
So many. I'm really excited about AI right now.
I am too.
Some of the tech that's out
I
there.
wasn't when it first was talked about. I was kind of like, wow, really? We don't need that.
Yeah.
But we do.
One of my favorite words is efficiency. And I think, what Jared was just describing is one way to use AI that really helps with efficiency. We are using right now, we just launched a CRM that takes notes from your phone calls. So it will summarize things when you're talking to your client. What were their kids' names? What are their priorities?
So you don't forget.
All of these. Yeah, or you forget, you write it down. Who's going to put it into the CRM? Let's face it. I mean, I don't know about you. How many, the top 1% of efficient agents are putting notes in their CRM, right? Let's be real.
Correct.
So it's just being done. It's not even doing what you're doing more efficiently. It's doing tons of things you should be doing, but you don't have the time, effort, energy to do that, right? So that's one example. It's listening to the call and it suggests tasks, and you can just click a little button to create that task. And it knows when to remind you for that task. It's got follow-up cadences, so you can come in at the beginning of the day. I think most agents are very willing, ready, and able to work hard. But a lot of times they're so overwhelmed by the 5,000 things they've been told they should be doing that it's paralyzing. So if you've got a list of tasks that you should do that day, to know that you've done your nurture and follow-up and you can get through it, and you can feel like, I just did all of the nurturing and follow-up that I was supposed to do for today. What a wonderful way to enter your day, Maybe you've got AI assistants who are facilitating that, where you can call your assistant. I think it's kind of cute that you can name it too. It's really fun to hear the names agents have chosen and why. But, you can call your assistant and say, hey, add this contact, or text, add this contact to the CRM. Hey, set up an appointment with so-and-so for this day at this time, as you're running from one appointment to the next, right? The same way you might if you had a real assistant. Are there glitches? Of course, that happens. But guess what? That happens with human assistants too, right?
Of course.
There's AI coaching happening now, right? There's software where, you've got machines that have been trained on millions of hours of sales calls. Does that replace a sales manager? Of course not.
No.
Right? It doesn't, and it especially doesn't, if you're working in a market as unique as New York City. But what it does do is empower that sales manager. It doesn't replace them. And then there's AI coaching, right? There's machines that have been trained on millions of hours of sales calls. I don't think that we're going to be in a place where that replaces your sales manager, especially in a market as unique as New York City.
Correct.
Right? But it does empower them, right? If they can see, as long as you trust the machine, you're going to test it out, see how it works. But if you've got, if every call is scored 1 through 5 and you see an agent who's consistently getting 2s, maybe a couple 3s, a 1, you're going to pay attention to them, right? If you see somebody who's consistently doing 4 and 5s, you're going to recognize there's somebody I need to acknowledge, right? They need recognition. They should be applauded for what they're doing. And you can see common issues. I mean, it can tell you how many times a word is coming up. So I just think there's all these remarkable tools that are going to help us do what we do better. I mentioned earlier that I really believe in personalization. I just read Unreasonable Hospitality, Will Guidara's book, the guy who ran 11 Madison Park. And I feel like if you have these kinds of tools supporting you, you suddenly have the time to be a little more creative.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. And I think, we here at Brown Harris Stevens do a really good job with trying to get as much education out to our population as possible with all kinds of sessions on stuff. There was one, this morning at 10:30, which I'm always missing on Tuesdays. But we do a good job at that because I believe that education, wherever it comes from, especially when you're talking about new technologies, is very, very important, right? You just did something recently. It's imperative for those who say, well, I don't really need to change. I don't really need to learn, or that's just way too much work for me. Pay attention, listen, it isn't too much work, okay? And it's going to help you, I believe, propel you to that next level, because as we're talking about today, you either level up or you don't. On that note, we're going to take a break. Talking New York Real Estate. We'll be right back right after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
This podcast is supported by the More Network, powered by Brown Harris Stevens. Real estate touches every aspect of our lives, from design and architecture to investing and the economy. Now there's a way to get all your real estate information in one place. The More Network. With more than 20 podcast and webcast series, the Mastery of Real Estate Network is powered by Brown Harris Stevens, one of the country's most distinguished brokerages. Discover advice from notable entrepreneurs, compelling topics, and access to top global real estate experts. Subscribe to their YouTube and Apple podcast channels by visiting getmorenetwork.com.
Okay, so we are back. Do you see the role of the agent becoming more specialized in the years ahead based on everything we've spoken about? Changing, growing, becoming more specialized in whatever specialization means. Do you see that happening down the road?
Not necessarily. I don't believe that an agent has to specialize to level up. Agents can do great being a generalist. So specializing is certainly one way that an agent can create their niche or differentiate themselves, but I don't believe it is the only way or a prerequisite to be able to do so.
Okay, so if an agent isn't leveling up, in your opinion, should they step aside and make room for those who are willing to do? Look, everything changes, right? I use a famous quote when I'm teaching. I use a famous quote on this program all the time. Life is change. Growth is optional. Choose wisely, okay? So if you don't want to change, if you don't want to move with the industry, if you don't want to progress, step aside. Because the world's not going to stop moving, right?
I think it's best for you to do so for your own sake and for your own health and happiness, because the truth is the industry is going to decide for you, right?
Well, that's the point, yeah.
Yeah, so I think you will find very quickly that if you are not adopting technology, if you are not adopting social media, somebody else is, and they are reaching out to that client more consistently with more personalized service, and what they are providing is a better product at the end of the day than what you are doing. So Yeah.
Jared, do you think social media is helping agents level up, or just kind of staying flat, or nothing at all?
I think it's helping some agents stand out. I would go so far as to say it's helping some agents stand out for the wrong reasons. Agents are at times deploying certain stunts or things that create humor and certainly get a lot of engagement, shares, and likes, but it may be creating that for the wrong reason or with the wrong reputation then flowing from that. So I think it's a double-edged sword. It is certainly a way that you can use it to showcase who you are, humanize yourself, and round yourself out and be a very good client retention tool, and even, to some extent, a client engagement and attraction tool. But I think the best way to be able to use it is one that creates education with some entertainment as well along the way. And if you're following your clients, your clients are following you, it's a great way to keep them sticky in what can be a very elongated sales cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as we look at social media, it could be fodder for silliness, but it could also be a great place for professionalism. And as I said off air before we started today, it's all about branding who you are and putting that out there. People relate to a brand no different than when you're in the grocery store shopping for something. Don't you tend to buy the same bread and milk and eggs and canned food or whatever it is you're buying? You go to the same thing. I buy the same thing my mother bought when I was a kid growing up, right? We're brand oriented. People need to be brand oriented also for those same reasons. It sticks, it works, but in order for you to do that well, you have to really understand who you are and put that out there. Be relatable. That, to me, is leveling up, because I think, quite frankly, a lot of agents in our industry today don't think that, don't put emphasis on that or focus on that, and they don't level up. They just kind of stay stagnant. What's happening in the market right now, Jared? Pricing, inventory, contracts, absorption rates, macro trends. How is all this, joining together to kind of make our industry a little fuzzy at the moment? What's going on?
Yeah, so there's a lot happening, and I think anytime there's a lot happening with competing directions, difference in opinions, it creates a lot of noise, right? And when clients need to be able to make a decision on what are they going to invest or purchase, for some, it requires them to feel comfortable in their own financial situation.
Correct.
For others, it's heavily reliant on interest rates or their job security or their future raises, prospects and things like that. But at the end of the day, clients need to be able to cut through that noise and find clarity. Because a client that is confused, is overwhelmed, is not going to make an informed decision, and very often will make the decision of inaction. So the agent needs to help the client find clarity. So something I've been working through.
Something that's measurable.
Something that's measurable. So, we're talking about agents needing to level up. So what is one way that agents can level up? This is something that I've been working on, and I'm going to call it the clarity framework. And it's all about having the right data, the right context, and the right strategy. So, and this is where the agent needs to come alongside the client to present them with the data. So this is objective. What are the facts? What's happening? What are the market stats? What's the average sales price, days on market? And present the facts, not hype, not, subjective feelings or thoughts or what ifs. Like, what are the facts? And then we have to present the context. What does it mean? And what does it mean specific to you, the client, in your situation? So we need to be able to internalize and process and help the client understand, not because we as real estate professionals want to prescribe, but so that we can help the client come to their own decision on their way, and we're along that journey. And then when you have the data and you have the context, then we can come up with the strategy. So what do we do about the situation? How do we go about helping you achieve your goals and either, move forward with the purchase, with the sale, with the rental? So if you think about it through this clarity framework and you look at the data, you present the context, and you align on the strategy, it is a simple formulaic way that would allow an agent to show their work to the client and be able to walk them through this. And that's so important, because you're going to co-opt the client and bring them along that journey. you're not just giving them a prescription, but you're going through this exercise and you're showing step 1, step 2, step 3.
And you're walking them
and
through
you're
the
walking
process.
them through it, exactly.
100%. Teresa, you mentioned data before. So how does an agent effectively translate that data into meaningful insights for specific client situations, a seller, a buyer? Because as we talked about before, data is everything. And because the client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, has gotten a lot more sophisticated these days, because they have a lot more access to data than they've ever had before. But how do we as agents effectively kind of translate that data into meaningful talking points so we can walk the clients through a process meaningfully and credibly?
Well, as real estate agents, we are doing this every day, all day long, right? So we should know. I really want to piggyback and agree with Jared's idea of the data and the context, because one without the other is kind of useless, right? When you're talking about, for example, interest rates, right? Well, what is your context? Is your context only the last 5 years? Right. Well, then you're going to say, wow, interest rates are so high, right? And that's the way that most people are walking around and what they are thinking.
Absolutely.
Even if they're looking at all the information online.
Absolutely.
It's our job to dig a little deeper. It's our job to understand the bigger picture and bring them the true perspective. I think it was on your last podcast, Rocco, Greg, your Brown Harris's economist was talking about interest rates and the fact that this is a nice stat, that I was like, oh, wow, this is so clear. Everyone needs to be walking around telling their clients this. Over the last 50 years of interest rates, we're actually, I think at 6%, we're a full, I think the average, I think that the average over the last 50 years was above 7%.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So we're actually doing quite well when you look at that way.
We are, but what's the perception behind that? It's like, whoa, how could that be? We were 3.5% and 4%.
There was a global pandemic, right?
And that's my favorite line.
That gets forgotten.
Let's hope we don't get back there.
That gets forgotten.
We'll happily pay 6%.
I completely agree.
Well, that's what I always say to buyers is anything that would result in us getting back to that level of interest rate will be far worse than the benefit that you will gain by having that low interest rate.
So now that we've got that out of the way,
Right.
let's talk about what monthly payments make sense for you.
100%.
What are your goals? And back to that consultative approach. But now you've framed the conversation. They don't have to worry about that noise. And as Jared said, there's much more clarity now about what to focus on.
If you skip 3 pumpkin spice lattes a month, you can afford that 2.5% extra interest rate. That's it.
But
it's
not
super
jalapeno
simple.
martinis.
No. No.
That's not going to stay.
Context.
But you're right.
You could, but then.
Well, you could, but I'm not going to do that. No. We have to be clear. We have to be concise. We have to tell our clientele, whether it's buyer or seller, our fellow agents. I sometimes wonder about, and you guys are managers, so you talk to a lot more agents than I do, the interaction between your colleagues, right? In the office, out of the office, on the street, when you bump into people. Hey, Vince, how are you? Whatever. All of these things go a long way. And to keep that level, I think, of professionalism in our industry, we have to be as professional with our colleagues and our fellow agents as we are with our clients and buyers and sellers. So I find it sometimes it's almost impossible for agents to kind of understand how important that is. I mean, at the end of the day, we are a profession, like every other profession that is out there. And we've got to get that, understand that, level up. I was a school teacher way back, when I graduated college for a fleeting moment. But, I used to tell people all the time, you grow by learning, you grow by listening, and you grow and you get better by doing. And I sometimes feel like, and I guess that's the topic of today's conversation, agents just don't understand how to level up. And I think a lot of that is because they don't want to, or they don't feel the need. It's like when I teach social media, why are you not on social media? Who's got time for that? That's a full-time job. No, it isn't. What's the adversity there? I'm not sure I understand that. What is holding people back from getting to that next level? It's longevity, in my opinion, or it would be.
I think there's an opportunity for us as leaders to help point out the way, because I do find that, it's kind of like what I was saying with the CRM. If you've got it's a balance we have to strike. If you've got a list of things to do, most agents would do it. I think
that's
certainly
being
most of the agents that are
task-oriented, right?
And we've got to be careful, because at the end of the day, you really are independent contractors. You should be business owners. You should be thinking about what to do for yourself. But as their partners, as their partner, as I feel like we are as brokers and managers, I think the more we can do, and this is not to take the responsibility off the individual agent. I think the real entrepreneurial agent who's going to thrive and be at the top is somebody who's hungry to learn all of these things anyway, and they're figuring it out. For the sort of mid-level agent, the more we can, that's why I wish there was a more like New York City specific education that we could just point to and say, take it. If you want to work at my firm, you need this certification, right? If there were a few things like that, I think that would level up the industry as a whole. And then I think it's a little bit with like social media, the more like real estate specific social media training that you can get. Like that's something we've started to implement. And you guys obviously do an amazing job with media at Brown Harris and giving people opportunities.
We are.
And leading by example.
Yeah.
Right? For a while there, honestly, I was telling people how social media was so important, but please don't look at any of my social media channels because it's not my jam, right? So I had to level up.
Yeah.
Right. And now
100%.
I've got the support that I need to make sure I'm really active on LinkedIn, and that's my channel. That's what makes sense for me.
Yeah.
I think you have to have at least, maybe you're not an Instagram person and you don't want to do selfies all over the city, but then do LinkedIn. There are lots of, or you're totally that person and you're on TikTok, which by the way, I feel like the leads we're getting from TikTok now, or suddenly I can't make fun of it anymore. It's so productive.
Exactly. I can't make fun of it anymore either.
Yeah.
I try to, but I can't because it's really amazing.
And like you said, for a very long time now, but now more than ever, people are checking social media to just check your credibility.
Yeah. Oh my
so
God,
half the time it's just, is this a
It's your
person? They're not
resume.
necessarily.
It's your resume. They're interviewing
Yeah.
you by looking at your social media.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
they just
really
want to feel like, first of all, does this person exist? Are they
they a
there's so
bot?
much fraud out there
Right,
now, right?
exactly.
Like, you're like, is this a real human being? Just seeing a fake website, this could be a fake website for all I know. Like, how do I know this person really exists? And if they see an established social media page with connections, they're much more likely to feel comfortable moving forward with you.
I totally agree. Jared, do you think there's a simple methodology for moving agents, clients, all of us that are touching real estate, from confusion to confidence? Because I think we could all agree that the last couple of years has been filled with confusion, interest rates, socioeconomic issues, global affairs with wars, et cetera. People are confused. People are frightened. What do we do? Or is there a simple way, and I hate to use the word simple, to move people past that mindset? All right, we've been confused, but you know what? We're now going into a more confident environment. Is there a confident environment?
The environment is what we make of it, right? And in part, this is where my clarity framework comes in as a simple sort of model to do so. But I think, and this is where I'm going to channel my friend and colleague Ben Willig, who brings out my human side, because I'm not just an AI robot spewing out information here. Although sometimes on camera, I do appear that way.
Before AI, there was Jared Anthony.
Yes,
I agree with that.
Or as Sarah calls it, Anton Intelligence, the original AI. But a little self-deprecating humor aside.
They're right. You're better than that. You're better than that.
ChatGPT is pretty friendly.
It is. It's very nice.
I don't think it's a huge insult.
That was my Halloween costume actually one year.
Okay.
But the point to answer your question is, and this is channeling my inner Ben, there's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset that people have, right? So that everyone has these self-limiting beliefs, and it's just a matter of, are you going to overcome those?
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to take, the bull by the horns and know that I'm going to try to grow? Someone that's of that fixed mindset is just going to be closed off, and they're going to be like, I don't understand it. I don't want to learn it. It's too complicated. I've been doing this too long. I'm too old. I'm too successful. Any one of those reasons.
Yeah.
Someone with the growth mindset is going to be like, well, I want to learn something new. I want to challenge myself, and we'll see what comes of it. And that is the mindset that is coachable, that is moldable, that is adaptable.
Yeah.
So again, to your point, change is inevitable. You're either going to get on the bus or the bus is going to leave you behind. So, this is where you're going to have some self-awareness. And quite frankly, the biggest rallying call out of all of this is I want to call on the consumers to demand more of agents. I can't just rely on agents doing better. I want to actually force the consumers to self-select out the bad agents and promote those agents that are doing well. So I challenge the consumers to be nice about it, but demand more. Demand a smarter, more competent, more informed, more flexible agent that is going to truly be that advisor that you want them to be. And then be open to needing it. So many times clients are closed off to wanting to use a broker. And I don't believe that they're closed off for the right reasons, meaning they may be closed off many times because they've dealt with brokers before and felt they've added no value. And quite frankly, we've all experienced agents in situations where that was the case. So clients should have an open mind, should have a growth mindset, and expect more and demand more in a polite, nice way from their agents. And then the agents need to rise to that challenge and meet the clients where they are.
How do you follow that? But he's correct, 100%. So in the last few minutes that we have, Teresa, where, hearing this, agreeing with all this, understanding that we need to level up and take everything to that next level, but on a continual basis, just in life in general, outside of the real estate industry, as people, right?
Sure.
In our relationships with our family, with our friends, whatever. We've got to always be better. How do you summarize, for everyone listening today, where we should be and where we should go and what that benefit will be for anybody in this industry, including clients, including buyers and sellers, not just for agents. And oh, by the way, I include, and no disrespect to you guys, but sales managers
Yeah.
and executives, because we all play in this same arena where we are coaching people or should be coaching people in the right way.
Absolutely. So I think there are three things that I am personally focused on right now. That's education, right?
Big.
It's minimum viable product, right? You got to be educated. You got to understand the market and be able to discuss it. Technology. You need to be up to date with what's happening with technology and be able to leverage that. You will reach more clients. You will reach more clients and they'll be reached out to by quality professionals. And so they're going to start to squeeze out the people who aren't reaching out as frequently and with less information and less polished communication skills. And then personalization, which I think is what technology is really going to allow us to do. So I think you really need to be, those to me are the three areas where I believe agents need to be leveling up right now or risk being left behind.
Yeah, and I'm going to walk out a little bit on a ledge here and give a potentially unpopular opinion and something that can be seen, admittedly, as sort of a gross generalization. But I think that our industry, and by that I really mean the creation of different brokerage models, has perpetuated or aided this lack of professionalism.
Absolutely.
Teresa and I both work at independent firms, right? And an independent firm is here to invest in quality agents and truly make sure that they support their clients. Because at the end of the day, an independent firm is so close to their clients, and the clients are the end-all be-all, and vis-a-vis, the agents are how they get there. So we care about making sure that we have quality over quantity. We care about the agents being hand-selected, educated, and that they reflect their brand. And we're not making money by just having the agent be a part of the brokerage, just in the room. We make money when they produce happy clients who then buy and sell real estate and then generate referrals. The issue is there's so many of these internet-only digital brokerage firms that are really just a SaaS product. And all they want are agents who are on their product and paying a certain amount of money every month or every year, and they don't have any desire or issue or reason to have fewer agents. They actually want more agents. So they actually want the standards to be lowered in the industry to get people in because they just want people on it. They don't really care if they sell property because they make so little money, if any, off of the transaction. And this is where training is not the same. There's not the same level of oversight. There's not the same level of coaching. So again, back to building on my piece to the consumer, consumers should also understand, and again, I recognize that this is a gross generalization. There's some incredible agents at every single firm. But in a gross generalization, consumers should look at how agents are treated, accounted for, and trained and developed at some of these large aggregators or digital-only firms versus those that are local, independent, more boots on the ground. Because there is a difference in the type of agent that goes and works at that firm. There is a difference in the type of camaraderie that those agents are going to get within their office space. And there's a different level, to some extent, in the reasons why that agent is working in this business. And that's really important. So again, I think a consumer needs to truly understand how agents from different firms will treat them and work with them and what they can offer, because again, consumers need to demand a better experience from the agents, and the agents need to level up to meet that increased demand.
Wow, there is a lot for me to listen to and watch on this playback, because that was incredibly informative. Both of you, Teresa and Jared, thank you so much. We're coming right back with my final thoughts right after these messages.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back with my final thoughts. At the end of the day, raising the bar in real estate isn't just about pushing agents to work harder. It's about elevating the standard of what it means to be a trusted professional. Consumers deserve more than half measures, and the industry deserves more than complacency. Every deal is someone's biggest financial decision, and that requires an agent who brings more than just a license. It requires market knowledge, negotiation skill, emotional intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to service. The truth is, the bar is only as high as we collectively set it. If we want real estate to be respectful or respected, if we want clients to feel confident in our value, then it's up to us to prove it every single day. So here's the challenge. Either commit to leveling up or step aside and make room for those who will level up. And frankly, that is how it should be. And that is our broadcast for today. Thanks to my guests for being here on set with me. You can follow me on Facebook, on Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Substack, or TikTok at Vince Rocco. And John Maxwell says, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network, to all of you all around the world, thanks for spending a part of your day with us. I'm grateful. Keep thinking the good thoughts, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.